Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. When C.B. Cebulski was hired to be the new editor-in-chief at Marvel Comics, many people hoped that it would lead to change regarding the declining direction of Marvel Comics. However, after looking at the incident where Mark Waid was allowed to bully and harass Antarctic Press into not publishing Jawbreaker's Lost Souls, I clearly see that there is no hope and no change at Marvel Comics. And why don't I see hope or change at Marvel Comics? It's because C.B. Cebulski is not running Marvel Comics is running him. And because he refuses to assert a clear line of authority, employees are running roughshod over him and literally stomping all over any sort of boundary he's trying to establish. Because one of the big problems with C.B. Cebulski is that he is not taking the lead in this situation. Here we have an employee like Mark Waid who has decided that he is going to be the dictator of the comic book industry. And he's going to decide what gets published at a competitor's business. Instead of him working to improve the quality of his own publications like The Champions or this new Doctor Strange series, we have Mark Waid here using his influence and clout to try to prevent a competing book like Jawbreaker's Lost Souls from coming to the marketplace. And the response from editorial isn't to call that man into the office and hold him accountable for his behavior. No, the response is to tell him probably to delete all of his social media and then go silent. I'm sorry, but that is an ineffective response from someone who's supposed to be an editor-in-chief. An editor-in-chief's job is to maintain the integrity of the catalog of characters, maintain the integrity of the brand, and maintain the reputation of the brand. And C.B. Cebulski has failed on all three counts in this situation. And this is early on in his career after a recent incident where Max Bemis was allowed to talk about feasting on his anus on social media. And the response from Mr. Cebulski was not to terminate Max Bemis, it was to make an excuse for Max Bemis, talking about how he has a rock star personality. Well, in publishing, you don't get to have a rock star personality. No, you are a part of a creative team, and if you cannot be a part of a creative team, then there is no place for you in this business, because no one person is bigger than the other person on a team, and people like Max Bemis and Mark Waid seem to think that they are bigger than Marvel Comics, and because they believe that they are bigger than Marvel Comics, then if I were editor-in-chief, I would just tell them there is no place for you at Marvel Comics. And when it comes down to your Mark Waid's insubordination is so egregious, I would immediately have terminated him as the editor-in-chief if I were working in that position at Marvel Comics. Because when I take a look at Mark Waid's behavior, it is not only insubordinate behavior by going out here to a competitor to intimidate and harass him, but it is also possibly criminal behavior. Moreover, when I look at Mark Waid's behavior, it literally compromises the integrity of Marvel Comics as a publisher. Because as a publisher, you need to understand one thing. A publisher has to try to make every effort to maintain our First Amendment of our United States Constitution. And when you have an individual like Mark Waid going out here to censor a competitor like Richard C. Meyer and John Malin and prevent them from getting their publications published at a competitor like Antarctic Press, what they are doing is trying to show that they do not respect the First Amendment of our United States Constitution. Now, the First Amendment of our United States Constitution guarantees all Americans a right to free speech and a right to a free press. And what Mark Waid did was try to abridge Richard C. Meyer and John Malin's right to a free press by intimidating Antarctic Press's publishers from going out to publish Jawbreakers Lost Souls. And what they did when they did that was they violated our First Amendment. And again, a publisher's mission is to protect the freedom of the press, because those same freedom of the press that Marvel Comics has is the same freedom of the press Antarctic Press has. And when Mark Waid goes out of his way to infringe on Antarctic Press's right to have a free press, what that does, it means that someone can come in and infringe on Marvel Comics' right to a free press. And that's why I've called Mark Waid a Nazi and a fascist, because members of the National Socialist Party, what they did back in the 1930s and the 1940s was, if you did not agree with the members of the National Socialist Party, they did not allow you to have a free press, and the only media they allowed to be presented in Nazi Germany and occupied areas was propaganda that promoted the ideas of people like Adolf Hitler. So when your Mark Waid sits there and talks about people who disagree with him are Nazis, we clearly see who is the fascist in the room. And we see that your C.B. Cebulski just does not have the backbone or the stones to check these unprofessional comic pros, and he's just letting them run roughshod over them and run roughshod over things like our United States Constitution. And that really shows me that he's really an ineffective manager and an ineffective leader, because what Marvel Comics really needs right now in order to change its direction is it needs a strong editor, a person who is going to take charge of the situation, a person who is going to lay down the law on many of these unprofessional comic pros, and someone with the courage and the backbone to go out here and terminate these comic pros and make an example out of them to really establish a standard for what will be a Marvel Comics employee. Because as I have seen it over the years growing up, working for Marvel Comics is supposed to be a privilege and an honor. If Marvel Comics is the leading brand of comic books in the comic book industry, then employees who work for Marvel Comics, whether they be artists, writers, or editorial, need to show that they are going to be willing to step up their game and step up their values in order to work there. They need to show that they're going to be willing to elevate themselves to the level of Marvel Comics, but under people like Axel Alonso, your Joe Quesadas, and your C.B. Cebulskis, it seems like no one is looking to establish a standard for professionalism at Marvel Comics. And because C.B. Cebulski is not establishing a standard for Marvel Comics, we see that the unprofessional behavior that ran under Axel Alonso is now escalating, because when we look at Mark Waid's behavior, it is a clear escalation of the previous unprofessional behaviors we have seen on social media over the last 2 to 3 years. Because for him to go out here and bully and intimidate a competitor like Antarctic Press, again, this goes beyond unprofessional behavior. This could possibly be criminal behavior. And as a publisher, again, there needs to be some sort of action taken. But your C.B. Cebulski hasn't really taken any sort of serious action, like terminating Mr. Waid and letting him know that this behavior will not be, tolerated at Marvel Comics, or standing there and sending out a memo to your other employees letting them know that if you continue to participate in insubordinate and unprofessional behavior, whether it be on social media or at a convention or even in the office, you will not be a Marvel Comics employee much longer, because this behavior will not be tolerated. Because that's what a professional in any other publishing business would do, because most of those publishers understand the value of our First Amendment, and they understand how important a free press is to American society. But when I look at C.B. Cebulski's ineffective management in this situation, it's looking more and more to me like there is going to be no hope or change at Marvel Comics, because when I look at him from day one, not taking charge, from day one, not taking action on Max Bemis and his unprofessional behavior, it is setting a tone for his tenure at Marvel Comics, and that tone is that he's not going to be a leader at Marvel Comics. He's going to try to manage situations, and it seems like the situations are getting more and more out of control for him, because he does not understand that you have to, again, set a tone from day one. You have to establish standards from day one. And you may alienate some people on day one, but if those people don't want to follow your lead, then it's time for those people to move on, because they clearly don't want to be at an industry leader like Marvel Comics. Because again, someone who wants to be at an industry leader like Marvel Comics, what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to elevate their game as related to their craft, and they're going to want to elevate their behavior on places like social media. If Mark Waid really wanted to be at Marvel Comics, he would spend more time working on making the comic books he works on, like the Champions and Doctor Strange and the Avengers before it, be the best comics in the business. Because that's what someone does when they appreciate the opportunity to work in a business like Marvel Comics. They want to create the best quality products possible so that they can continue to bring in new readers. Because that's what I do every day working on my SJS Direct imprint. I want to bring in new readers to my products. I want to bring new readers to books like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, The Temptation of John Haynes, the Spinsterella trilogy, and many other books I publish. And I want to bring new readers into African American fantasy and science fiction so that they can understand what's great about this genre. And I want to bring those new readers in, and I want to bring them into an environment that is open and amicable to them and lets them know that these books are out here and you can enjoy these books. And Mark Waid hasn't done that, and C.B. Cebulski has not laid a foundation to create that kind of environment to bring in new readers to an industry that is dying right now. And one of the reasons why that industry is dying right now is due to the fact that we have many of these comic book professionals who don't understand that when they're on social media, they need to be professional. And when they're out here, they're not only out here representing themselves, they are representing the company they work for, and they're representing the products that they work for. Because when I'm on social media, most of my time is spent out here trying to promote and sell books, and promote and sell books to new readers. That is my goal when I go out here and use social media. I want to use these platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I want to use those platforms to reach new customers, and I want to use those platforms to reach new readers. But I don't see C.B. Cebulski going out of his way to lay down some sort of policy regarding social media and to lay down some sort of policy regarding comic pros' behavior online and in the business world. Because when I see people like Mark Waid escalating their behavior, that comes because management is not taking charge of the situation. What they're doing is sitting back and they're being passive. And when you are a manager, as I studied in my Principles of Management class way back in the 90s, you cannot be a passive individual. Management is something that is active, and if you are not active, what's going to happen is, again, people are going to run you, and they're going to run your business into the ground. And that's what's happening at Marvel Comics under C.B. Cebulski, in the same way it's happened under Axel Alonso. We have these passive managers who are just being very weak and letting people walk over them. And instead of them laying a foundation for change, what they're doing is sending a message to their customers that there is no hope and no change at Marvel Comics. If you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you can click the link to Amazon.com, and there you will find the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, The Temptation of John Haynes, the Spinsterella trilogy, and in nonfiction you will find the Simp series, and all those books are available in paperback and Kindle formats. And if you want to help me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.